Welcome back to Business Unusual on this Monday afternoon. We're still taking a look at our top business stories that are moving markets and having a massive impact on the economy this afternoon. Now, one of these is a resource company, Marafa Resources, who released their interim results earlier on today. They saw their revenue for the interim period growing to 2.8 billion rand, but their share price has taken somewhat of a beating, falling 5% in early trade this morning. And still with me in studio is Matete Tulare, who's a forex dealer at Rand Merchant Bank, to maybe speak about the anomaly here. I mean, Matete, resource company, they've certainly been the darlings of the market in the last few weeks or so. We saw share buybacks, we saw them retiring bonds, we saw them paying generous dividends, and some of them even making some of the unions happy. I mean, I spoke to Joseph Matunjwa last week, and he was saying, speaking glowingly about some of these companies and what they've managed to negotiate. And it seems in the chrome ore space, in the ferrochrome industry, probably not as good a price environment as what we saw in platinum.
Which is unfortunate, because I think the big thing has been the weak chrome and ferrochrome prices that we have seen. And Merafe did come out with their interim statements earlier this morning. They have mentioned that there will be production cuts across key markets, which is obviously going to be happening, especially in an environment where you've seen ferrochrome prices fall about 10% on a year-on-year basis. But nonetheless, they have also said that given the fact that their profits have also just on a two-thirds cut, they're also going to withhold their interim dividend. And I suppose maybe that's also another thing that, they've been the stars of the game, but with them withholding that dividend, it doesn't bode well for them.
But I guess they haven't closed the possibility, Mateta, of declaring a final dividend if indeed things improve in the next 6 months.
Exactly. So look, I think the next 6 months will be quite critical for them to see how they do going forward. But they have also said that, with Eskom's unreliability, that's also another factor for them, because obviously this means shutting down of some operations, which unfortunately does filter down to the bottom line.
Yeah. Let's take a look at two geopolitical factors which I think would have a massive impact on the demand for chromium ore and ferrochrome, which is an input for some of our viewers who might not be familiar with it, input into the production of steel, which we use in everyday life, right through from the sort of forks and knives we have, right through to structural steel, which is used in construction. Now, one of those is the stimulus package and program in China. And the other one, of course, are the trade tensions between Beijing and Washington, much of which revolve around the steel tariffs, which I guess were the early sort of shots that were fired by the Washington administration.
Very much so. So if you remember, China and the US, those are the big two bulls in the kraal. And it's unfortunate that, when the two bulls are fighting, the grass is going to be the one that suffers.
Yeah.
So that's the situation that we have at the moment, that, unfortunately for some of the people that are exporters of these commodities, such as Merafe, they are going to bear the brunt of it, because unfortunately that trade war is sapping, and it's just reducing the global growth. I mean, we saw the IMF, the World Bank, now every month they're just reviewing and revising their global forecast as to where we're going to land up at the end of this year. And it's just unfortunate that consumers of these products are in those two big markets. And unfortunately, if you have a situation where you have all these geopolitical risks, consumers aren't going to be willing to spend, consumers aren't going to be willing to buy those products. So hence you're going to see decreased demand for the likes of stainless steel.
I often say, firm results like this, least of all in commodity groupings or sectors that seem to be lagging the curve when it comes to our own economic growth as a country, are often, giving us some of the clues about where it is we're going to go. And if we look at that global growth and some of the forecasts that are coming from multilateral organizations, it certainly doesn't bode well for us, who haven't cleared the 1% point mark. And as an open economy reliant on global demand in key of our export markets, if indeed demand retracts in some of those key markets, it's going to have massive impacts and potentially, I guess, limit or constrain the ability to get our economy going again.
Oh, geez, look, we've been struggling to break the 2% mark ever since 2013.
2%, 1%, 1% even.
And it's unfortunate, because over the past 2 to 3 years, we've seen the likes of the National Treasury, we've seen the likes of Moody's, the IMF, all, whenever we start the year, they think that, we'll have 1.2, 1.3% growth. And then as things carry on, as we see things, just unravel and in front of us, the state-owned enterprises, the amount of corruption, the amount of wasteless expenditure that's been reported by the Auditor General. You just see all these policy uncertainties in the mining sector. Unfortunately, all these things, at the end of the day, they all add up. And hence we're seeing, growth of around 0.5, 0.7. And I mean, just to a certain extent, I think some are also calling maybe 0.3 for the end of the year, so which is quite a bad number. And this is in spite of global growth at the likes of, 3.5%. And it's unfortunate that we're also lacking behind our African counterparts, such as our friends up north in Ethiopia, where they're actually booming,
Yeah. When we take a look, and I guess anybody who's ever been to Addis Ababa will tell you it's an entire construction site, which signals the kind of confidence that there is in that particular economy in the Horn of Africa. But let's come back to Merafe. They've indicated now that it seems there is some form of oversupply or surplus in the marketplace, and they are going to undertake some production cuts alongside some of the other production cuts that their counterparts in the sector are also going to take. What is that going to mean for employment?
Oh, geez, look, you do remember that they've got a JV with Glencore, so that's also part and parcel of the strategy. But, if there's an oversupply, it just means that, production at some point has to be cut. This means, obviously, you're not going to need as many employees. I'm just hoping that, despite this little conundrum that they have on their hands, we're not going to see any job cuts. I think it's just bad enough that the South African economy has had so many job cuts over the past 3 to 4 months. I mean, if you just look at that unemployment rate that came out last week, it's the highest in 11 years. So we're just hoping that despite the, the oversupply that they are having, there's actually ways that they are looking at mitigating some of that supply constraints. And also, hopefully, there won't be any job cuts. And I think, if there is any job cuts or anything with regards to jobs, there could also be a follow-on with the unions also now wanting to play a hand in that.
And potentially, of course, unless there is perhaps an improvement in demand, be it from China or even the United States or any other nation that demands sort of structural and fabricated steel, potentially not going to see any improvement here in some of the prices despite some of these production cuts.
Yeah, look, and I think the big thing is, as we say, the two biggest economies is the US and China. And it's just unfortunate that they're not reaching a deal a year later after, Donald Trump announced these trade wars. So it's just baffling for the market. Everyone is hoping, we were hoping that after G20, where there was, the ceasefire between the two countries, we thought there would be some sort of positive momentum. The guys would start talking. The mere fact that they were calling each other every day, the guys were flying across. And until now, we've got, no consensus. There's no deal that's been reached. And it's just unfortunate because those are the two biggest economies that actually can also help, the global environment, just be uplifted somewhat. But we do know that the US and China have said, despite what has been said and done last week and today, they will be meeting in the first week of September to resume negotiations. So hopefully we will see a close to this soapy that we've seen for the past year.
And I guess many of us have to camp there with our popcorn on Donald Trump's timeline, because I guess that's where much of the industrial policy of the United States is announced, seemingly of late. But Matete, pleasure catching up with you this afternoon. And until we catch up again, man. Thank you so much. That there was Matete Tulare. He is a forex trader at Rand Merchant Bank, talking to us, of course, about some of the big news coming out of the marketplaces there, moving markets. And one of those big news that's set to affect all of us is that petrol price increase of 11 cents. It's coming on Wednesday. So, of course, if you're one of those people that go out and fill up before that, I would encourage you to do so over the next 2 days or so. And if we don't see any improvement when it comes to the Rand-dollar exchange rate, we're set to see another one in the coming months. And it's certainly going to put paid to any possibility of another rate cut from the Monetary Policy Committee. So things continue to get worse for many of us here as consumers. We're going to take a quick break now, and on the other side, we go into our Startup Monday conversation. Send us your questions that you want to ask us and tweet us your handle. We're going to be taking a look at the issue of a spectrum. What does it mean for you as a small business? Cabinet announcing last week that they've decided on how to allocate spectrum, and of course they will communicate that in due course. And many of us who are interested in how small businesses can engage and interface with the digital economy will certainly be watching this one closely. We pick up that conversation on the other side of this brief break, but tweet us on @4 405business _ at 405business _ You can also send us your comments on WhatsApp, and our number is 072 110 5584, 072 110 5584. Stay with us.